So I received my Master's of Fine Art degree in Community Art from Maryland Institute College of Art. It's in Baltimore, Maryland. Little small fact, all of the artists that you will see tonight also received this degree. They are good friends of mine and just incredible artists and educators and everything. Speaking of the artists, this is a list of all of the artists that are in this show. Many, if not all, are on this call tonight, which is just a joy. So we will have time at the end after we go through each of the artworks. We will have several minutes designated at the end if you have questions, either for myself or for any of the artists, or if you really want me to go back and look at a specific work again. That time will be designated at the end. So if you have any questions, I do encourage everyone to ask questions. These artists are incredible and are able to talk about their work in ways that I am not. So I do encourage folks that as we go through all of these to think of questions, and at the end, you can either put them in the chat or raise your hand and I will call on you just like we are in class. So without further ado, we are going to roll right on. And our first artist that we will be highlighting tonight is Linnea Poole. This is Mothering Earth Thyself. It is photography as the medium. And as I click through each of these, I will be reading the artist statement that the artists have sent in. So I will give just a brief pause and I will read the artist statement. Decentering from what is currently outside of home, your temple is the place where stillness takes place, calmness yearns to thrive, where mothering lives and walks on earth which builds the climate. It births greens, flowers, and has the scent of eucalyptus. Earth's lightning shines from your soul, and it glazes the ground we walk on every day. Also, for the artists, after I read the artist statement, I will give a brief pause. If you would like to expand upon your art, you are more than welcome to, not required. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to say something, or oh, Jesse, mention this, just hit that unmute. So again, this is photography artwork by Linnea Poole, and of Linnea Poole, if I might add, of Mothering Earth / Thyself. Really beautiful piece. Moving right along through our museum. Next up, we have Julia Zia. This is a work entitled Last Piece of Message. And for all you printmakers out there, this is an etching print on a copper plate with ink on paper. And if you are unfamiliar with printmaking, you can see the general picture. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see some markings. And on the bottom right-hand corner is the signature of the artist. So that's how prints usually work. Now reading the artist statement written by Julia. Oops, sorry. After receiving her master's degree in community arts at Maryland Institute College of Art, Julia Zia is now working as a freelance artist. Julia sees her art as a medium that is able to raise awareness of social issues mildly and invite people to not only view as audiences, but have a conversation to talk together safely. As an artist working in community, the word community for her is not only about humans, but also includes other species and the whole environment. She hopes people can be more aware of them, think and talk about what we can do to better our planet. So this is Last Piece of Message by Julia Zia. Oh, also, forgot to mention, thank you for folks who are commenting in the chat. See this as an interactive thing. So if you see something that really speaks to you, or if you see something that you just really want the artist to know, wow, I love this, please feel free to shout it out, say an amen or something in the chat. If you'd like everyone to see it, you can select for everyone to see it. But yes, I definitely encourage everyone. If you see something that you really like, definitely put it in the chat. Almost as if you're saying, wow, and we can all hear it. We can see it in the chat. So yes, I do encourage folks to do that throughout the entire show. Next up, we have another piece by Julia. This piece is entitled Underground. And this is a very interesting one. I encourage you, if you're on either a phone or a laptop, really get in there and see there's lots of interesting parts of this piece. It's entitled Underground, and it is a multi-material piece using ink and paper. Another print, I believe. And if you really squint, you can see all of the really interesting pieces that are incorporated in this artwork. I also really love the intentionality of where everything is placed, not just the objects in it, but the blocks of all of the different images and how they're kind of arranged. We have just one more piece from Julia, and this is a performance art piece. Excuse me, I had to think of the wording there. A performance art piece that Julia created. This piece is on YouTube, and it is about 11 minutes long. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I did want to play about 1 minute of it, just as a brief statement of what we are about to watch, even just one little piece of it. This performance is about the relationship between humans and nature. 3 tasks are metaphors for our unaware behaviors against our environment. Julia utilizes interactions via melting ice cubes, cutting plants, and skewering balls on sticks in this piece in order to visualize the influence of human behaviors. By inviting audience members to the stage to do tasks together, Julia wants audiences to recognize the issue and join the conversation with her, sharing thoughts and ideas collectively and talking about how we can think twice and more next time when we make decisions. So this is a 1 minute excerpt from Environmental Experiment.
Hey, Jessie.
Yes.
Was there any sound to the video?
Not really. There is sound, but it's not necessarily important. It's very, very quiet. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeffrey, also, and Linnea for pointing that out. Oh, and Julia chimed in as well. It was the sound of the hairdryer that was ever so faint. So yes, there was no speaking in this performance piece, but yes, the very faint sound, if you did hear it, was a hairdryer. So the person doing the first task on the left-hand side was using a hairdryer to melt an ice cube that was dangling from little sticks, it looks like, on the table. And if you have joined us a little bit late, we will have time at the end for questions and for the artist to speak more about their work. So if you're really eager to hear from an artist, I think either most or all are on the call, so there will be time at the end, but I wanted to go through kind of all the work, and then we can go back and get some more details. So again, that was Environmental Experiment by Julia. Our next piece that we will be viewing is Infinite Terrains by Susan Tuberville. This piece, if you can believe it, was made just out of thread, which is very interesting. They're very organic shapes that are put onto a wall. And I will read her statement. Susan writes, "In my work, I often explore patterns of movement, change, and fluctuation. I'm inspired by abstract patterns I find in nature, which to me act as a visual archive of physical histories. In these embroidery pieces, I depict abstract topographical shapes that undulate and fade away, in some places leaving holes where land masses existed previously. I only use thread to create these pieces. In some places, the thread is almost unraveling, which underlines the delicate impertinence of these physical forms. I hope viewers will reflect on our role as humans in protecting our environment. Based on our daily choices, the earth can either thrive or diminish before us." So beautiful pieces by Susan Tuberville, Infinite Terrains. And again, if you see something you like, throw it in the chat. Say, wow, I love that. As artists, we love to hear when folks are moved by our work, so don't be shy. Our next artist that we will be highlighting is Laura Sly. She has two pieces that are in this show. This first piece is entitled Gentrification. It is a mixed media piece done on a wood panel. It is, for context, it's 36 inches by 45 inches. I know about this piece particularly if you look at the tree on the left, that is actually burned into the wood itself. It's not drawn or painted on. If I remember correctly, Laura, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do seem to recall that the tree has been burned into the wood panel.
Yeah, there's a couple of different textures. It's burnt, and then it's also in certain parts three-dimensional as well. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you for chiming in, Laura. Yes, three-dimensional as well. You can kind of see some 3 dimensions in the bottom part here and in other places as well. Oops, sorry, I forgot to read her artist statement. Oh, I did it again. Laura Sly is an arts advocate who is currently working within Baltimore communities, Baltimore, Maryland. These works, this one and the one I'll show you next, speak to the climate of the inner city green spaces, how they are often ignored, uncared for, and the inequality of the distribution of green space in the inner cities. So this is Gentrification by Laura Sly, mixed media wood panel. And I'm seeing some love in the chat, that's great. Next up, Laura Sly has another piece entitled Outside Windows. This is an acrylic on canvas piece, and it is 25 inches by 25 inches. And again, if you are in a position to either zoom your screen, like zoom in, or get a little bit closer, I encourage you to do so to see all of the beautiful textures that are on this canvas, entitled Outside Windows. As we move through our virtual museum here, got some more love in the chat. Thanks, Marla. Our next artist that we will be highlighting is Catherine Lieberg. Catherine does sculptural work and installation work as well. This piece in particular is entitled With Direction. It is red-bodied clay, and for context of dimension, it's a 3D piece, but generally speaking, it's 20 inches by 12 inches by 16. So it's a pretty hefty sculpture here, and I will read her statement that she has provided. Catherine writes, "My work is focused on the idea of sustainability as a human concept. My art takes the view that an ecological future is tied to our societal one. There is no way to heal the earth until we heal ourselves, our relationships, and the inequities built into our culture. Taking the form of installations, tools, and rituals, my work exists physically, but is formed through participation. My art is meant to be touched and is used to mediate the world. The concept of each project is tied up in the viewer and how the viewer chooses to interact with it, becoming co-creators and co-explorers of a coming future." If you feel the need to reach into your screen and virtually touch this amazing sculpture, I do encourage you to do so. Definitely not, you won't feel the bodied clay, but if you truly believe, you can feel it through the screen. I believe that that is true. Yes, it's a very tactile work.
I was really thinking exactly that as you read it.
Oh, like, good.
Oh, yep. Not an artist for a virtual world.
No, but we can still experience it even through a screen, which is important. And we can learn about you and read about you. Getting some love in the chat. Thanks to everybody. At the end, we'll also share where you can follow these artists via their social media and or websites. So don't be afraid. This is not the last time you will see these artists. You are able to see them throughout the ethers, as it were. So again, With Direction, Red Bodied Clay by Catherine Lieberg. And we have one more work by Catherine. This work is entitled Memorial to All Possible Futures. This is, if you can tell, it's an installation work. She used wood, porcelain, and water for the different components of this piece. It is very much life-size. So, Catherine, I don't remember the height of the wooden structure, but it is, I would guess, around 4 feet tall.
The back panel, the shifting panel, is 5 feet tall, and the for perspective, everyone, the largest of the 3 reflecting pools is 8 feet long. And so if that gives you some like ability to put yourself in place.
Thanks, Catherine. Yes, I do find it important sometimes to include size for context. And I'm going to try to read the plaque that coincides, that goes along with this piece. If you look on the top right-hand picture, there is a small plaque that is hanging, and that is pictured on the right of it. So I'm going to go ahead and read that aloud so that folks can really take it in. This memorial stands in honor of all those residing along this temporal plane, all beings who inhabit this and all present times. It stands in memoriam of all pasts, of the histories that are held both consciously and unconsciously, so that we may always acknowledge them. They sit with us and shape our beings, and thus we must commit this space to knowing that they are present. It stands in anticipation of a future that is always passing, present, and distant, a future that keeps the past present in all decisions, a future that represents a shift in relationships, both human and non-human, a future that sits in complexities and possibilities, knowing that both are infinite. There was a question in the chat asking about if some of these works are for sale online. That's a question that we can ask our artists at the end, and a wonderful question that I wanted to say out loud before I forget, so we can we can reflect on that later. So memorial to all possible futures, installation and sculptural work by Catherine Lieberg. Getting some love in the chat, Catherine. All right, next up, our final artist that we will be highlighting today is Sarah Coltwasser. She has a few works that I'm going to share. This is a mixed media on a panel. It's 12 inches by 12 inches, so if you imagine a foot by a foot. This work is entitled, "This is the Time." There's lots of yummy things to see in this one. I'll go ahead and read. She has 3 works, so I'll read the first third of her artist statement that she's provided, and then for the other 2, I'll read the next paragraphs, because they kind of go together in a set. Visually, at least. She didn't tell me this, but visually they do. So Sarah writes, "My artwork and community practice is based in the varied processes of learning and exchange. A space where past histories, school-based educational experiences, the acquisition of information, and aesthetics associated with knowledge are explored, questioned, and dismantled. Further, my work explores the ways in which acts of complacency support structures of oppression and hinder efforts towards equity and freedom." So this work is "This is the Time." We have a person in the chat makes me think of Doomsday Clock. Some great feedback, some great thoughts. By Sarah Coltwasser, mixed media on panel. Our next work by Sarah is "Water Demand." And let me try to find, here we are. Sarah writes, continuing her artist statement, "We cannot afford to be complacent about the state of our planet. Information, education, and action are key components to combat climate change and to ensure climate justice. The safety and efficacy of our water systems, our forested spaces, and being mindful of the limited time that we have to do this work is essential to the survival not only of our world, but the people living upon it. Our youth call out for climate justice. They see the implications and the scale of loss we have begun to experience, as well as the devastating impacts on those living in poverty and in indigenous communities." And our third and final piece by Sarah Coltwasser. This work is entitled "Stack the Deck." Again, mixed media on panel. It's about 1 foot by 1 foot. Sarah goes on to read, "We must all do this work. We must shift away from a resource pilfering. I'm so sorry, I don't know that word. Pilfering. Thanks, Sarah. Sometimes your smartness just overexceeds mine. I'll start again. We must shift away from a resource pilfering capitalist model. We must take considered action at home and professionally. We must educate all folks about the importance of our planet and its systems. Humanity and the natural world depend on it." Heartbreaking and necessary indeed. Thanks for all the love in the chat, folks. Keep them coming. So again, this is "Stack the Deck" by Sarah Coltwasser, mixed media on panel. And now that you've seen all 3, you can kind of see how they go together and how they really speak to each other. So folks, that is the art that we have selected here. Oh, there's some more things coming in the chat. Very poignant. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your connections. This is great. So that is the art that we have. These are all of the artists. We are scheduled to go till 9, y'all. So we have half an hour to ask questions and to really get into the nitty gritty of all of these things. So we are at a time for questions. I will open it up first to our artists. If anybody either wants to go deeper into their works or if they want to say anything further. Otherwise, I am going to try to keep up with the chat and see what questions come in. The first question that I saw was, is any of this work that we've seen tonight on your websites or for sale in any way? So if you can remember the order that we went in, I'll kind of go through again. If you want to answer in that order, and then I'll end this question with where folks can find you in the ethers. So we'll start with Linnea here. If you want to go ahead and unmute and answer that question first.
For me, yes, Jesse, once you put the information on how to contact me, the website, on my website, but yeah, prints will be available. Just, you know, if you're interested, you can just reach out to me via website or via Instagram.
Very good. Yes, and I will be sharing a screen with everybody's information that you can either take a screenshot or take a picture of. Julia, I think you're also on the call. Is there a way to purchase your art or find you or find these particular pieces that we have on here?
Hi everyone, good evening. I will say yeah, definitely. And just also the same, reach out to me via Instagram or website. I think you can leave messages on website, but also Instagram is cool. Just direct message me. Thank you.
Very good. And Susan, I think you're still on here as well.
Yeah, thanks. This particular piece is spoken for, but I am open to commissions. So the same, I have a contact me spot on my website, and Instagram direct message always works really well. And I'll post anything new I make in the upcoming months. So thanks for the question.
Great, thanks Susan. And Laura? Either if these pieces are for sale or other pieces on for sale. I think you were on the call earlier.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I thought I
unmuted. That's no worries.
I've been talking for a moment. Yes, things are available. You can contact me on my website. I actually prefer just contact me on Instagram. Okay. I'll definitely check that, definitely. But yes, we can do commissions or things are available for sale as well. Mm-hmm.
All right, and Catherine?
I haven't priced, I don't have any prices on my website. I also haven't really priced any of this work out, but if people are interested, I do have a contact me on my website. I don't have an Instagram, but the contact me just goes to my email, which I check too much. So yeah, I'm open to a conversation.
All right, and Sarah.
Same as pretty much everybody else. I have a contact me on my website that you can email me at. I also don't have prices up on my website, but I'm always happy to share that information if someone reaches out. And I'm also on Instagram too much, so you can always be there.
So this is the golden slide. I encourage everyone on the call to either take a screenshot or take a photograph of this. This presentation, not this exact one, but a slightly different one that has everybody's artwork and this slide, I am going to share in the chat in just a moment. So anybody can have access to this to view. So folks can share the link. It's just a Google slide. So if you're familiar with Google Docs or Google Slides, it's a link that you can go to, and everybody will be able to have viewing access. So I will share that once I get just a moment, once we have another question asked. We do have another question. Is Memorial to All Futures currently installed somewhere? That is a question for Catherine, so I'll let you take it away.
It's not. Memorial to All Possible Futures is currently taking up a lot of space in my studio. I was actually really excited to be doing this virtual show, because you don't get very many opportunities to install a piece as big as the Memorial to All Possible Futures. And like a virtual show, you can go as big as you want. So it doesn't look quite, oh no, it's a long name. I maybe title everything a little too long, but no, not currently installed, but always looking to put it somewhere else.
Thanks, Catherine, and thank you for your question. Questions like this and others are welcome and acceptable, so thank you. You're welcome, Kristen, for sharing this collection with you all. I'm glad you can enjoy it. And I'm realizing that I shared the presentation for this exact one. So there is another one that's just kind of the show itself, instead of the presentation that I just gave. Yes, you can also download this as a PDF. So I'm actually going to share another link with you all. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment so that I can get that link. But if there are other questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask on your own if you like. We still have plenty of time, so if there are any questions, or if you want me to go back to a slide so that you can see it again, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, there's the link to just the gallery.
Jesse, someone has their hand raised.
Oh, fantastic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Susan.
Okay, my question is, are the artist statements available anywhere? We are tasked with going to see our senators and representatives and giving them some justification for enacting legislation to support the climate control. Some of the things those artists said were like, wow, that's so powerful. Can I borrow some of those words, or can I give their words on a piece of paper to the senator or the representative? That to me, that was so powerful.
Thank you, Susan, for asking. That's wonderful. One note that I will say, I included all the artist statements. If you go into the Google Slides, the first link that I shared, all the artist statements that were written by the artists, I put in the notes section. However, I will kind of look at the artists. If you want to either give like a thumbs up or something, put in the chat that it's okay if they use your words. I will say, as artists, it's important to credit those artists. So if you do use words of an artist, I would ask that you use them in quotes. But if you, the artists that are here, if you want to either put in the chat if that's okay. I don't want to speak for you. But generally speaking, I know if it were my art statement, I wouldn't mind sharing. But yes, so we have a thumbs up from Sarah there. Yeah, if you do use words, definitely try to see who it is. And we got a thumbs up from Laura as well.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I would do that.
Yeah, I think that is
saves me trying.
Yes.
But yeah, that's just another voice in the request and the ask to the legislators. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for chiming in and asking. I think that's wonderful. I know as an artist myself, I know that when you write an artist statement, you really have to think very thoughtfully and intentionally about what you write. So I'm going to say thank you for your comment, even though I didn't write anything that I read tonight, but I think that that's really sweet. Scrolling through the chat here, I don't want to miss anything. Yes, and if you have to leave, you of course, more than welcome, but definitely I encourage you to click on those links that I shared so that you can see. And I believe that the links will be on the EAD website that you registered through, I believe. Another question, how much are the pieces based on a specific experience or event, or based on ongoing reflection on the state of the world, environment, and justice struggle? I will open that up to artists, so if you have a thought on that, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I can jump in and.
Oh, Linnea, awesome.
Oh wait, go ahead.
Go after.
Somebody get ready to talk. What? Okay, I was just gonna jump in for mine, for my piece. So yes, mine is definitely a it's the state of the world, environmental injustice, and all of that. Mine is actually what we are going through right now, because we're still in the house. Although yes, you can get the COVID shot and things like that, we're still wearing masks. How long will we be wearing masks? So yeah, for me, it's what is actually happening right now within my realm. So yeah, it's definitely like within the state of mind. And someone else asked a question about spiritual practice. Yes, I feel like all of my artistic talents comes from my ancestors who have passed on, especially my grandmother, my great-grandmother. And then I have paternal grandparents who I actually never met. They passed on before I was born. So I pull on that, as well as God, to help me pour out this art that I have within me.
Thanks, Linnea. Sarah, you want to go, and then we'll follow up with Laura?
Yeah. So the piece of the water and the fire, I've lived in Oklahoma, but I spent most of my time in my teen and adult life in Portland, Oregon. And so I had access to the Columbia River Gorge. I got to walk through like richly forested spaces. And so that area is really close to me, both aesthetically and just as having access to the natural world in that way. And I've seen over the years, the fire season get more and more intense. I painted murals outside on the sides of schools when there's fires in the Columbia River Gorge, and people in Portland proper have to wear masks outside. And so, when I think about the impacts of climate change, I think about that kind of work. And then especially knowing what I know about the environmental kind of situation on the Willamette River, and then also the Columbia River. It's always something that's kind of present in my mind, because water is such an important resource. So those were the things I was thinking about when I made this work.
For me, it's what I see every day. So gentrification and the outdoor use of space or lack of it, it's current. It's what we see every day. Windows, I'm literally looking out of my window and that's what I'm seeing. So it's spring, there's still death and rebirth. However, because of the climate, things aren't coming up the way they should or the way they used to. Just over the last few years, I mean, when was the last time we've really had a winter here in Maryland? So it's obvious, even though people keep saying it's not, but if we don't do something soon, it's going to be too late. So I think it's very blatantly obvious that something needs to be done.
Thanks for sharing, Laura.
And take it.
And yes, thank you, Linnea, also for bringing up that there was a question earlier about spirituality, and if any of the artists are interested in sharing any spiritual practices that may be connected with any of your pieces, you can share on that as well, if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
I realized, hi, I'm Catherine. I've realized like over time that my work's a lot more spiritual than I necessarily like set out to make it. A lot of my practice involves like creating these spaces or tools or rituals for contemplation and connection. And while at the core of it, I often have like a very academic approach to my work. There's a lot of research coming in, like processing a lot of information and thinking really critically about form. And then, but what it comes down to is trying to like recreate that sort of connection with the earth and each other that I think is an inherently spiritual thing. And I would, yeah, so I think my work tends to be sort of accidentally spiritual. But I think that's a lot because of my own upbringing and because of, you know, like my own relationship or the relationship I'm attempting to cultivate with the planet and within my like personal relationships. I saw a question for me that was about the other piece. I'm blanking on the title of my own piece right now. Here we go, with direction. This is one piece. The question was if this is 3 pieces or if this is one piece from different directions. This is one piece from different directions. The other question about it was what inspired it. That I'm happy to talk about this because I got a really interesting reaction to it in the chat earlier, which was reacting to it looked like burnt earth. It's, I was reading about the evolution of ants, and ant societies have developed at the same time as human societies. And we, without meaning to, have supported ant civilizations in development, and ants, without meaning to, have supported us in agriculture, in all kinds of ways, and even supporting our cities and waste management. And so we're completely unaware of each other. And yet in this like constant process of caring for and supporting each other. And so I created this piece, which is meant to look really like hyper modern. It almost looks like space junk is how I referred to it a couple of times. And then carved in these ant pathways with this sort of idea that like tracing these paths and understanding this like language of connection could lead to a deeper understanding and empathy that is always should be at our core.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah. There was a question for Susan and her work. The question is, let me see. Why is the word broken by parentheses? Talking about infinite terrain. Susan, would you care to share?
Sure. Thanks for that question. Yeah, so I chose to break this up just kind of to, I guess, suggest that there's a choice for us. So we have infinite terrain if we take care of it and finite if we don't. And that's kind of the short answer. Yeah, I think that's it. So I guess I actually haven't said the title out loud very much. You could pronounce it infinite, you could pronounce it infinite, however you see it.
Yeah, my immediate reaction was to pronounce it infinite, but I love that it could also be infinite. I kind of love that.
Thanks, Jessie.
Yeah.
And thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn, she said, I'm the one who said burnt, scorched earth, but can totally see our ant colonies now. It's amazing how you can see something and then learn what it actually was or what it could be, and how different people see different things in the same work. I think is just fascinating. What other questions do folks have, either for a specific artist, or it could be general that all of the artists can respond to or reflect on? I'm curious, I'll ask a question. I'm curious if anyone of the artists have made art specifically for this call, or if it was already art that they had that fit the bill, because I know as artists you can have art that fits in different themes, but I am curious if anybody made artwork specifically for this show. Sarah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like whenever there's like a very specific call, I always try and like create work to meet that kind of like theme. I don't think of any theme as outside of the realm of possibility necessarily when I make work. I think it's just about like trying to think about what I try and do with my paintings or mixed media collages or things like that, and think about the language of information and how I can share something about under that theme, you know, because so much of my work is about like trying to put image and text together to get people to look closer at an idea, or to think about something in a new way. So that's why I felt compelled to make work specifically for the show. And it also allowed me to kind of like reflect again on kind of like home in a way. Like I've lived in Baltimore for 5 years, but Portland is always close to my heart. So, and the Pacific Northwest is always like close to me. So.
And Sarah, I saw that somebody in the chat earlier reflected on, I think they used the word weirdness of how this kind of like water stream flow is interrupted by this paper. Can you talk a little bit about that decision and what that weird stream of water going through paper means?
Yes. So a lot of my work deals with like the iconography of information sharing. So when I think of information, I think of how it's like shared digitally, but also via paper. And I think about like the tools I used for learning, like notebook paper. And so it's like it's kind of like a reference to the act of transferring information or transferring knowledge when I put like paper in these images. So it's less about being like, look at all this paper in the Columbia River Gorge, and more about like the gorge taking over this paper space it's like moving the information through. So it's very like weirdly complex. Lots of layers and meaning, as art is apt to have.
Thanks for elaborating on that, Sarah.
I was going to say I specifically with an S created my piece in reference to the art call, because it gave me a chance to think about climate. I was trying to channel like where I grew up versus where I live now, because climate where I grew up, there was no grass, there was no trees, there was one small supermarket. So it really gave me a chance to reflect on the times back in the day, because, you know, I mean, I look young, but I am a little up there. So, but yeah, it helped me to, you know, think about like then and now, and, you know, what's going on now outside of my window.
And from my memory, I think everyone else had their work already in existence, if I remember correctly.
I created one additional piece, but the other one was one fit in and one I created.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Great. I didn't know that. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Yeah. And for correcting me.
That's okay.
So yes, this piece was created for the call. I'm going to come back to this slide. If you haven't already, please do take a screenshot or a photo of this slide. This is all of the, I'd say contact information, but it's more like websites and where you can find these artists on the internet via website and or Instagram. All or at least most of these artists have said that you can reach out to them on their website or their Instagram. So I definitely encourage you all to do this. All of these artists have made work above and beyond and far away and very similar, but also different to this climate change or climate justice call. So the vast array of work that these artists have created is incredible. So I do encourage everyone to visit these amazing websites. We still have a couple minutes. If there are any other burning questions, now is the time. If you had thought about a question earlier and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should ask, this is the call to ask the question. We've got about 2 more minutes. I want to make sure that we have a full, solid, juicy hour together. So if there are any other questions, and it doesn't even have to be about art, it can be about, you know, anything. Well, we're getting a lot of thank yous and wonderfuls and shout outs in the chat. So I do thank all of you for joining. Thank you to the artists. Yes, it's always important for to have more to think about. If you have registered for this conference, I know that there's a lot of juicy things coming up. So definitely register for all of those things, all of those workshops. There are other things that are art related that I'm not necessarily leading or participating in, but I definitely encourage folks to look at all of the things that are being offered this weekend. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so that I can see your faces or at least see your names. If you have any questions, either for any of the artists or for myself, I'm going to put my email in the chat so that if you have anything very specific that you want to ask me, let me make sure I spelled that correctly. Washington 72 New York. That's my personal email. So if you have any questions, or if you sign off and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to click on the link, can you share it with me? I can do that for you. Sorry, I couldn't tell if somebody was trying to say something or anyway, any final thoughts from any of the artists? If you want to say any final words or anything. We're getting lots of thank yous from the artists and from people that have participated in this event as well.
I just want to say thank you for the thoughtful questions and responses. I think that viewing art together and talking about it adds so much to the meaning. So this is a really cool experience and nice way to start off my week as well. So thanks for tonight. Thank you, Jessie.
Yes, thank you, Jessie. You the bomb, girl.
Yay, thank you, Jessie.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thanks, y'all. Well, yes, thank you all. I could say it all day. But thank you for everyone who joined. If you missed anything or if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I put my email in the chat. I'll leave it open for another couple minutes so that you can look through it. I hope everyone has a beautiful and blessed evening, whether it's 9 p.m. where you are or any other time in the world. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of the conference.